helping out in the home, but also for you to have, a little bit of downtime. So thank you so much for giving some of your downtime to us tonight. Thank you so much, Louise. Well, that was Louise, and clearly Louise found her way to being, if you like, aware of her caring responsibility and sort of the fact that she was a young carer relatively early on because of the help of her mother, appreciating the role that she was playing in the family. To say that her life was easy because of that would be wrong, but she found out that she was a young carer relatively easily. It's not always that way, is it, Tom?
So what do you do if your mother or father doesn't give you that little bit of extra help? It's particularly, you perhaps don't realise you're a young carer. That's the sort of things that people are saying to us on Carers World Radio. It's almost like telling the story from chapter 6. Rather than starting at chapter 1 right at the beginning. But when it comes to that feeling of isolation that so many of you have told us about, where does a young carer turn for help? Well, a way forward couldn't have been put better, perhaps, by the Children's Commissioner for England, Maggie Atkinson, when she sent a message to young carers via carersworldradio.com.
I'd say what I say to them when I meet them face to face, which is... you carry on very young shoulders a weight that somebody else should be helping you to carry. You may well be doing an amazing job, and you may well still be holding things up at school and making sure that your homework's done, as well as that the house is sorted and your mum or your dad or your siblings are safe and cared for and fed. And everybody in the country would say, we take our hats off to you and we admire you, but you are also a child and you deserve your childhood, and somehow you need to find somebody you do trust, to whom you can tell your story and from whom you can ask for help. Because we owe it to you. You're not a grown-up. You're a child and you need that support. And that will be hard. Have a really good think about it and decide who you trust, who can you talk to, and then do it. Take your courage in both hands and go and find somebody that makes you less alone.
Maggie Atkinson, Children's Commissioner for England, with a very powerful message. Well, there are official places to turn to if you're not able to find that sort of help and support from your school, perhaps. There are established organisations like the children's charity Childline. Joining us now on Carers World Radio is Belinda Hollows, Childline Supervisor. Welcome to the programme, Belinda.
Hi there.
You obviously hear from young carers on Childline. What sort of things are they saying to you?
Well, young carers that we hear from are going through all sorts of different problems, but there's a range of feelings that they're experiencing as well. Some of them are feeling very isolated, some of them are very stressed, depressed, they may be angry that they're not able to participate in life, that they see their peers joining in, they may be cut off from their friends. They may feel guilty about the feelings that they're having about having to care for a family member. And I think all of them probably feel alone with it and struggle to find the support that they need. And I think one of the reasons that they talk to Childline is because they're aware that we're not going to take any action unless they want us to do something to get them some extra support. So all those sort of fears that they have that the family might be broken up if they tell somebody that they're having to do the washing and the cooking and the cleaning or look after siblings, we can sort of guarantee that nothing they tell us will go any further. So it's a safe place where they can talk about all the difficult things that they're going through without that sort of threat of any consequences from what they say.
Is there any sort of sense from the calls that you receive of any particular age group of people who are saying, I feel isolated, I feel stressed, and that whole range of feelings that you've just described?
Most of the calls that we take on this subject from young carers are in the sort of 12 to 16 bracket. And these are, young people who are really trying to balance all sorts of elements in their life. They're trying to still keep up with their education. They're trying to have a normal teenage life. But they're also struggling at such a young age to manage the household or to look after a parent who needs a lot of physical care, to take on the stress of the family finances and things like that.
And you've indicated, obviously, that your approach is non-judgmental. Do you try to give them advice, or are you simply a listening post, if you like?
We are both. I mean, we are there simply to listen, so nothing has to happen. There doesn't have to be any outcome from our conversation. And if young people are just feeling at the end of their tether and just really want to talk to somebody without feeling that they're judged or that they're going to be in trouble for it, because they often feel guilty about complaining about anything that's going on in their life, because they know maybe their parent's sick and that's not their fault and it's not anybody's fault. So we hear there's a lot of guilt around that. So if it's just a case of wanting to talk to us, then that's fine. But if a young carer comes through and wants some help and maybe isn't aware of the support that's out there, then certainly we are somewhere they can come and ask about that, and we'll think through with them what their options might be for seeking support and help them think about what the consequences might be if they go and ask for that help. Because I think a lot of young carers are very frightened about asking for help, and that fear sort of stops them from finding out. And so we're able to provide them with the information that they might need to take the first step into getting some kind of help, even if it's just a little bit of respite for themselves, and just sort of inform them about what their rights are in terms of having a right to get access to their education, and if necessary, and if that's what they want, then we could help them get in touch with social services. But that would only be something we do if it's what they wanted. So it really is up to the young person as far as how much help they want, and whether it's just, on the one hand, just someone to listen to them, or on the other hand, actually helping them go all the way through to get all the services that they might be entitled to support them.
Childline's been in existence now for some years. Do you get any sense that possibly difficult to say, but do you get any sense of whether there are more young carers contacting you now, more feeling isolated and stressed than, say, previously?
And we have had an increase from over the last year. We had a 40% increase from the previous year in calls from that would have been categorised as calls from young carers. At Childline, we have had an increase in contacts in general.
When you get the first call from someone, do they say, "I'm a young carer," or does it sort of, in a sense, the story start in the middle, and then it becomes evident?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it's very rare that someone would ring up and identify themselves as a young carer. Normally what we would hear is that somebody was very unhappy, or maybe struggling at school, or maybe unhappy with, we get a sense that there's some kind of argument going on within the family, and it's very, very common that it would take a certain amount of time before it became clear that actually the reason the young person maybe was struggling at school, or was being bullied at school, or was having rows with family members, would be because that they had this immense burden placed upon them, and demands were being asked of them. And the cause of their great unhappiness is much more complex than how they first presented. And sometimes it is the case that, we're actually helping young people to see that actually this is how they could be seen as young carers, and as young carers there is support out there for them. And the other thing is that on the Childline website, there's a whole community of young people who support each other around various issues, and there's a whole section of young people who talk about what it's like to be a young carer and try and work out with each other whether that's what they are, because and they'll describe to each other what they're doing, and they'll get support from each other that way. So that's something else that I would really recommend if there are any young carers listening, that they go onto the Childline website and have a look at what other young people are saying about those similar experiences.
Can I just finally ask you, you've mentioned young carers looking at your website. Any young carers listening